Right, well, research shows that the state pension is deemed insufficient by 4 in 5 people in the country for basic living needs.
Well as this, 18% of Brits aged between 60 and 64 now live in what's considered deep poverty.
Now, due to this, the Chancellor is still planning to introduce a pot for life for pension savers, even though experts have warned it could hike costs for low earners. So we're asking the question, should the state pension be raised? Joining us now, former Labour MP Denis McShane, who believes we should raise the pension, and political commentator Jack Rowlett, who believes that we should not. Denis, the first thing I want to ask you is, here's what I don't understand looking into this. Why are there two types of pension? Why, depending on when you're born, you'll get 50 quid less than somebody who has joined the state pension in the last 5 years or so?
I mean, I'm trying to learn Greek. I think that'll be a lot easier than understanding how our pension system arises. I've got my own point of view, but that's for a lecture or not this morning. It's not done viciously or meanly. Basically, when you enter, that changes it. When they upgrade the pension, it may not cover everybody. So that's that particular stat you've seized. But at the end of the day, that's quite a small difference. Our basic problem is we have never, ever put enough money, obliged employers, obliged ourselves.
Yes.
That's the most important thing, to save. And those savings actually are a form of investment that grow all the other European economies. But of course, we mustn't learn anything from Europe now.
So, Jack, the older you will be becoming, I think your opinion on this may change, my friend, but why are you against not raising the pension pot?
So I think in the UK at the moment, we have a demographic crisis, which is only getting worse. We know over the next 25 years, 25% of the population are going to be over 65. Currently, we're kind of rationing the fact that we can't really afford the current state pension system by continuing to kind of creep back the state pension age, which I think is grossly unfair, because current working people who are paying for the state pension through taxation are not going to be seeing the same benefits that they're currently paying for. But also, if you're a richer pensioner, you're going to be getting a state handout for much longer than if you're a poorer pensioner, because life expectancy is much lower for poorer people than richer people. So by continuing to push back that age, it's grossly unfair. I think what we need to do is, rather than kind of scrapping the state pension or reducing it, we need to be means testing it instead, because currently, whether you're a rich pensioner or whether you're a pensioner who's struggling to heat your home and feed yourself, you're getting that same handout from the state. That is absolutely ridiculous. If we means tested the state pension and said we're only going to give it to retirees with assets of less than £1 million, would save the government 25 billion a year. Now, you could put that money towards cutting taxes or assisting working people, the people who are driving growth in the UK, and increasing the state pension for those pensioners who are in poverty, that 18% that you mentioned, who really need support from the government. So I think the current system, it doesn't work at all, it's unsustainable, and it's grossly unfair.
But I suppose, Denis, the counter-argument to that would be that would force a lot of people to sell their homes, which is, you know, not an election winner. It's not a popular thing. And at the end of the day, these wealthy pensioners, they may be in a minority amongst pensioners, but they are an important and significant part of the vote, are they not?
Liz, might I gently and politely ask Jack? He's very, very strong. It was a very powerful argument. How old are you, Jack?
I'm 23.
You're 33. Whoa.
23.
So, 23?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. Well, that's wonderful. You look really, really dynamic at that age. Let me tell you, as you get a bit older, you'll be paying taxes, a lot of taxes, because to rebuild this country after the last 10 years, everybody's going to have to pay more after the disaster of the Liberal Democrat and Tory economic ideology. And you'll find that you'll be very, very hard to persuade everybody older than you to pay a lot more so you can live in a better country. So I wouldn't actually means test pensioners, because means tests are mean. That's why the word is there. Well, not quite. And they're deeply unpopular. And these are all guaranteed ways, I don't know which party you represent or are close to, of losing any election on that basis.
Jack?
Well, I don't represent any party. I'm simply looking at the current situation, looking at the fact that it's unsustainable. and unfair. And I think we are seeing taxes raised to a record high. We are seeing downward pressure on growth. And we know that our current welfare spending, of which the state pension is a huge proportion, we need to be growing the economy at about 3% a year in order for that to be sustainable. And we're nowhere near that at the moment.
You say you don't represent any party, and absolutely fair enough, you don't have to answer this, but are any of the parties speaking to the young, the working population, as you say, on this, or are they all very aware that the people who by and large turn out to vote are of the older years who stand to gain from the system as it is with the triple lock?
Well, I certainly don't think any of the major parties at the moment are speaking to the working age population on this issue. They're all committed to keeping the triple lock, which just doesn't feel fair when you have, 1 in 4 pensioners are millionaires, when you have working families having seen their average annual income fall by £375 a year since 2010, but pensioners have seen theirs increase by £510 a year. And when we see that nearly a third of children in this country are in poverty, whilst if you're a pensioner, you're much less likely to be in poverty than the average Brit. So we need to be focusing our efforts on those pensioners who are still in poverty.
About figures that aren't really relevant there, but what would you say?
Very, very simply, Jack, you're quite right. There are huge discrepancies because we're the most unequal society.
But I'd say try living in 156 quid a week,
exactly.
Jack. That's what I'd say.
And pensions, 20%, that's 1 in 5 pensioners, don't finish the week with enough to pay for their food bills. They can't even dream of running a car, which if you're far in the countryside is a form almost of being trapped there. You certainly can't go on holiday or buy presents for your grandchildren. Honestly, Jack, I mean, don't differentiate by saying every pensioner can afford to become even poorer. I agree with you entirely. Don't get me wrong. We've not dealt with care problems. We've not looked at much better examples in Europe. Germany, for example, there was a consensus in 1995 to tax everybody, rich and poor, 4% to pay exclusively for old age care. Now,
I'd love to do the interview again with you in 50 years' time, Jack. We're going to leave it there, my friend. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.